She needs to be on a better team, and she needs to be more experienced.
Is there a world where the Indiana Fever are just trying to keep their core together? Some of them are going overseas, so maybe in this scenario, just kind of taking a step back from all the drama, letting everything kind of cool down. Maybe it is a good thing that Caitlin Clark isn't playing.
ESPN made a grave mistake and is now whining about Caitlin Clark's new contract in Europe as if they had any control over her decisions. They don't. Caitlin made her own decision after months of being used as a prop, and now the ESPN is left fumbling for shoddy justifications. Unrivaled, no, but Europe, yes. No matter how much they scream, beg, or stamp their feet, Clark has packed her belongings and won't turn around. Why? Clark possesses a great degree of common sense and self-respect. Clark, in contrast to the WNBA's geniuses, believes in herself. She will not stand by and be used as a punching bag by a league that is unable to even defend its most well-known player. Why should she remain? Players have abused her, referees have ignored her, and critics who couldn't believe she was running this joke of a league by herself have harassed her. However, since she's come to the realization that she's more valuable than the WNBA's abused cash cow, everyone is losing their mind. I apologize, ESPN. You have a lot of wasted opportunities and a big empty nest now that your golden goose has fled the co-op. It's almost comical how ESPN is seeming indifferent to Caitlin Clark's shocking revelation about the WNBA now that she's heading to Europe. Caitlin is leaving a trail of dashed egos and unfulfilled expectations behind her because she is tired of the WNBA's circus act. She's finally had enough after spending the entire season carrying the weight of the league on her shoulders, drawing harsh penalties, and receiving body checks more akin to those given on a hockey rink than a basketball court. And what do you know? I do not at all blame her. See, this goes beyond just a player switching careers. Do you recall her last Connecticut Sun game with 29 points, 7 rebounds, and 10 assists? She was practically a one-woman show. Her teammates, meanwhile, were occupied with staging a farce of gaffes, missing easy baskets, and making stupid plays that would make a high school coach wince. So what action did the WNBA take? They took a back seat and observed as the officials handled her as if she were Clark at any point on the floor. ESPN and its analysts are beginning to wake up. Whoa, it turns out they've been sitting on a moneymaker all along. How convenient. Prior to Caitlin, the Indiana Fever were fortunate to draw 3,000 spectators to each game, which felt more like a neighborhood block celebration than a major league event. However, what transpired once she arrived? 177,000 fans packed the arena for each game, a 400% increase in attendance. How's influence on that? They were dealing with a once-in-a-generation opportunity rather than just a famous person. Okay, so let's continue to concentrate on sharing wealth instead of paying tribute to the one player that made the WNBA famous. I won't even get started on the excellent sales. Luminary Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi were not the only players in league history whose jerseys were outsold by Caitlin Clark's. We're talking about a first-year player, a rookie, who is surpassing Hall of Famers in performance. That is historic. In addition to being beautiful, her games were almost nationally televised, and she turned the WNBA into a must-watch sport. Has she ever been treated like the superstar she is by ESPN, though? Nope. Rather, they offered bland coverage, treating her like any other athlete. They're hurrying now as if they didn't sleep on her. It's too late, ESPN. The boat has already sailed over the Atlantic, and you missed it. Let's talk about the audience. More people watched the game against the New York Liberty than some NBA games on TNT, with 1.5 million viewers. And what's left now that she's gone? Many empty seats, soiled jerseys, and ESPN pundits trying to figure out how they botched the easiest victory in the history of sports broadcasting. It's funny to watch ESPN and the rest of the world scrambling to catch up with Caitlin Clark after she decided to pack up and head to Europe. Her time in the WNBA was nothing short of a nightmare. The level of toughness Clark faced in the league was extreme. Whenever she put on her sneakers, it felt more like she was going to defend herself than getting into a street fight. They were elbowing, pushing, and beating her, basically all the dirty tricks in the book. What was the league's response? By acting as though nothing was happening. Consider yourself a rising star who represents a team, but the league uses you as a punching bag. And let's avoid talking about the officiating just yet. Was anything present? Because if you watched any of her games, Clark was being physically assaulted on the field, and it seemed like the referees were playing see no evil, hear no evil. She said she felt like she was getting beat up on the outside. What action did the WNBA take? I dismissed it as though it were any ordinary Tuesday. Everyone should have learned a lesson from the famous eye poke event. However, the WNBA chose to ignore it as though it were commonplace for a fantastic athlete to be viewed as an outsider in their own league. The psychological cost is incalculable. You get weary of missing calls and bad shots. You're exposing yourself, making yourself vulnerable, and receiving criticism for not being tough enough in return for busting your butts to support a team. Please give me a moment. The league dropped the ball so hard that it is still rolling. And now they want to play catch up along with its applauding media. Pathetic. Hold on, things get very great. Take into consideration what Alyssa Thomas has said about racial racism. Inside the fan community, Thomas made accusations that Clark's attraction isn't so much due to her astounding brilliance as it is to racial dynamics. What then did ESPN do? They devoured it, going ahead with this absurd tale as if it were brand new. Rather, instead of emphasizing her performances that broke records, they cast her success in a racial context. Really? They want to make Clark's success into a racial problem while she was out there shattering records, breaking ankles, and carrying a team. And then they lean in trying to stir the pot since they obviously can't read a room. Further still, what was Clark's response? She refused to back down, insisting that her success is the product of her own perseverance and hard work rather than a made-up racial narrative. However, the fact that she was forced to do so shows how distorted the storyline in the media has become. As I sit here, the majority of people are unaware of her in the sports world, and she has 14,000 followers, making her extremely easy to ignore. It's only because of Caitlin Clark that anyone is even aware of her identity. Furthermore, she still only has 14,000 Twitter followers. Her brand isn't very strong. They may have presented her as the upcoming big thing, which, spoiler alert, she is a warning. Rather, they created a narrative that only serves to undermine her and bring everyone down. It's really repulsive. In the interim, what impact does this have on public opinion? Clark has no business being in such a toxic atmosphere. She's put in a lot of work, so why is she dealing with sideshow scandals instead of getting recognized for her achievements? The league needs to wake up and realize that this kind of mess is not only hurting Clark, but also giving the WNBA as a whole an incompetent appearance. I won't even begin to discuss the story of the WNBA. All season long, they positioned themselves as the league of equality and opportunity, yet they fell short of protecting their most prized asset. The ramifications of neglecting the one athlete who turned the WNBA and ESPN into a spectacle worth watching will eventually be felt by both organizations. Their lifeline, their heartbeat, Caitlin was allowed to pass away. Now, all they can do is watch while she takes her skills and the attention she's garnered to a league that actually appreciates them. Now that she's packed for her trip to Europe, it appears like everyone believes she's the real deal. Too little, too late. The WNBA had the opportunity to build a whole team around her and make her the face of the league, but they chose not to, and as a result, they lost their biggest star. And ESPN is sitting there trying to make things look better and maintain their dignity when, in truth, they erred. They squandered a generational gift by letting it slip through their fingers. Caitlin Clark has luck in Europe. She's moving to a place where people will actually acknowledge her talent and not just rip her up every game while the officials turn a blind eye. What about the WNBA and ESPN? They are currently the joke's punchline, something they had no idea they were doing, so maybe, just maybe, this may wake them up. Her leaving for Europe will leave ESPN in utter turmoil. All of the attention that Caitlin gave to a league that, let's be honest, needed a miracle to stay relevant will have to depart, along with the juicy ratings and the spike in gear purchases. They are now left trying to overhype players who are not capable of matching Clark's season-long success. The irony is just too wonderful. As she exits the room, they finally realize they have found a treasure. Thus, ESPN and the WNBA will be left with a significant void that will be challenging to fill when Caitlin Clark packs her bags and heads to Europe. They may have built an empire around her, but all they have left is scraps. Players like Clark are rare, so cherish them when you come across one. ESPN is going to pay a price for throwing away that opportunity. This is a catastrophe, not just a loss. The WNBA blew a huge opportunity to become something special. Enjoy Europe, Caitlin. You are worthy of far better than this nonsense.